Ghost, or indeed Ghost B.C, are a bunch of Swedish godbotherers mischievously concocted by the mind of Tobias Forge, a vocalist known from such bands as Repugnant and Subvision. In 2006, while fast asleep in his native town of Linköping, Tobias had dark and sinister music reverberating throughout his dreams. One particular night, a riff came to him that he spontaneously decided to put to paper. This song would become Stand By Him. The idea for Ghost came about after Tobias wrote a few more songs similar in tone to Stand By Him, and wanted to have them recorded and produced. During the recording process, Tobias became interested in forming a musical entity around these songs. He originally wanted to be the guitarist of the band, but after several fellow musicians declined the role, Tobias stepped up to the altar and created a demonic anti-hero called Papa Emeritus, a crooning satanic pope that Forge would perform as for the band. Deciding to use masks and makeup to create a fitting aesthetic for the band also gave them the option of anonymity, which they took. Ghost B.C.'s imagery was heavily inspired by vintage horror films such as Hammer Horror and obvious satire of Catholicism, with a dash of old-school shock rock added for good measure. Despite the band's appearance looking like a true cult black metal group, their music is actually reminiscent of bands like Blue Oyster Cult, and to a lesser degree, Black Sabbath. Other inspirations of Ghost include the Beatles, ABBA, and Depeche Mode. Some of Tobias's vocal inspirations come from such unlikely places as Tori Amos, Greg Graffin of Bad Religion, and David Gilmour. Starting from today, I will be going deep into the discography of Ghost. Over the next few months, we will have quite a lot to cover. Let's begin with Opus Eponymous. Opus Eponymous, Latin for the self-titled work, which I'm sure is meant to be some kind of funny joke on the band's part, is the debut full-length of Ghost, released on October 18, 2010. It begins with Deus Culpa, a spooky melody played on a church organ, that functions as a short opening to the album. Sets the aesthetic very nicely for what is to come. This is followed by Con Clavi Con Dio. After a punchy bass line overlaid with what sounds like a Hammond organ, Papa Emeritus announces his arrival. Lucifer, we are here for your praise, evil one. Ghost, even from day one, had an impeccable knack for a good hook, and this song is loaded with them. Even at some points mixing sinister Italian chanting into a section that you'll find yourself humming if you aren't careful. Third track, Ritual, feels very much like a Blue Oyster Cult song with added evil. Sounds like a cheery stroll through the chapel until Papa laments on the smells of human sacrifices that infest the building. Despite this uplifting hook of the song's chorus, there is some truly messed up lyrics in this little ditty about a ritualistic killing in the name of Satan. This chapel of ritual smells of dead human sacrifices from the altar. Fourth track, Elizabeth, is based on Elizabeth Bathory, a Hungarian noblewoman who tortured and killed hundreds of young women between 1585 and 1609, because she believed that bathing in the blood of the youthful would give her eternal beauty and health. In this song, Papa fawns in adoration of Miss Bathory and yearns for her resurrection, claiming that her lust for blood makes her one of us. This is probably the closest to a love song you'll ever hear from Ghost. fifth track, Stand By Him, is a devilish ode to a witch trial, wherein the witch devotes herself to him, meaning Satan, as a bid for revenge against her prosecutors.
Tis the night of the witch. Tis the night of the witch tonight. And the vengeance is hers for as long as she stands by him.
Towards the midsection of the song there is a quote delivered by Papa that is from a witch hunter's guidebook called Malleus Maleficarum, aka The Hammer Against Witches, written by Jacob Sprenger and Heinrich Kramer. This song has the distinction of being the very first written by Ford for Ghost as a band project. The lyrics could have either been ripped straight from one of his twisted dreams, or just the result of his dark imagination. I'll leave that for the want of speculation. Sixth track, Satan Prayer, is, wait for it, yet another satanic serenade, which mostly focuses on the spiritual aspect of the Creator versus the Destroyer. Emeritus at some point mentions the Nicene Creed, which is essentially a Christian prayer, of which he claims to have his own infernal version of.
Hear our Satan prayer, our undying Nicene Creed. Hear our Satan prayer, for the coming of seed.
In the booklet that comes with the album, it is interesting to note that the coming of seed that Papa is referring to is spelt with a U rather than an O, another example of Tobias trolling. Seventh track, Death Knell. The song title is a reference to the tolling of a bell that announces one's death. Papa repeatedly alludes to this a number of times throughout the song. There is also a heavy theme of fornication with the devil and the propagation of his sport.
666, receive the beast of
So, the long and short of it is that you are Satan's bitch and you're feeding his kids after birthing 1,000 of them apparently. Sucks to be you. Eighth track, Prime Mover, very much like several other tracks on the album, deals with the conception of the Antichrist, this time making reference to a secretive nun being obsessed with a varicose phallus, presumably belonging to the big guy in hell himself. The ninth and final song of the album is an instrumental track called Genesis, no doubt inspired by that part of the biblical arc. It has no lyrics, but is written in such a progressive style that you find yourself conjuring images within your mind like some sort of satanic fantasia. The mix of analog synths, acoustic guitars and theremins creates quite an epic climax. The Japanese version of this album had a spookified version of the Beatles' Here Comes the Sun as a bonus track. I'm not sure if they had the right to do this, but could they have renamed their cover as Here Comes the Sun? It's a missed opportunity. Both words sound the same, so it would have worked so well.
Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun, and I say it's alright.
In the booklet you'll see that all writing credits are given to a Gull writer, which is forged, and later editions of this album reflect this. So in a nutshell, that's Opus Eponymous, the first Ghost album. Join me next time as I delve into Infestus Mam and a little EP called If You Have Ghost. And I'll also cover large events from the time, such as Ghost having to slightly alter their band name.